The bell at Lincoln Elementary in suburban Ohio didn't just signal a break. It triggered a symphony of opening zippers and rustling brown bags. In the sun-drenched cafeteria, fourth grader Leo Miller sat at the far end of a long oak table. While other kids boasted about their Lunchables or traded Oreos, Leo's movements were practiced and precise. He pulled out a dented, blue metal lunchbox, the kind with a vintage superhero, on the front whose face had long since faded. Mrs. Sarah Jenkins, a veteran teacher with a keen eye for the quiet ones, watched him from the doorway. Leo would carefully unlatch the box, lean his head over it as if inhaling a delicious aroma, and then use his plastic fork to eat invisible portions. He would chew slowly, his eyes fixed on a comic book propped up in front of him, occasionally wiping his mouth with a napkin. To any casual observer, he was just a boy lost in his own world. But Sarah wasn't a casual observer. She noticed that Leo never had crumbs on his face. She noticed that his water bottle was always filled to the brim with tap water, which he drank in large, desperate gulps to keep his stomach from growling audibly. One Tuesday, Sarah decided to bridge the gap. She walked over with a friendly smile, her own Tupperware in hand. "Hey, Leo, that smells great. Is that your mom's famous pasta?" The boy froze. His knuckles turned white as he gripped the edge of the blue box. For a split second, Sarah saw the sheer panic in his pale blue eyes, a look no 10-year-old should ever have. "Oh no, Mrs. Jenkins," he stammered, his voice thin. It's just a spicy chicken wrap. My mom says it's too spicy for most people. You probably wouldn't like it." He quickly latched the box, the metallic click sounding like a final curtain. Sarah nodded gracefully and walked away, her heart heavy. She knew the spicy excuse was a shield. The curiosity that had started as a professional observation had now transformed into a gnawing ache in her chest. She needed to know what Leo was protecting behind that dented metal lid. The following morning, during the school-wide Pledge of Allegiance, Sarah stayed back in the classroom while the students headed to the auditorium. The silence of the room was heavy. She felt a twinge of guilt, but she knew that to help Leo, she had to confirm her fears. She walked to Leo's cubby and reached for the blue lunchbox. It was shockingly light, almost weightless. When she flicked the latch and opened it, her breath hitched. The box was pristine. No crumbs, no stains, no smell of food. Just a folded napkin and a small, smooth stone Leo must have picked up from the playground to give the box. Some weight so it wouldn't feel empty when he carried it. Sarah sat at her desk, the cold metal box in her hands. She pulled up Leo's file on her laptop. His records showed a stable middle-class background until 18 months ago. Then a sharp decline. His father, a local factory foreman, had passed away suddenly from a heart attack. His mother, Elena Miller, had no college degree and was working 3 part-time jobs just to keep their small rented house. Sarah realized that the crispness of Leo's shirts and his polite demeanor were a facade maintained by a mother and son who were drowning in silence. Determined to see the reality, Sarah drove to the address on file after school. It was a small gray house on the outskirts of town where the grass was overgrown. Through the thin kitchen curtains, she saw Leo sitting at a small table, his textbooks open. Elena was standing at the counter, her shoulders slumped with exhaustion. Sarah watched as Leo pushed a small plate of crackers toward his mother. "I'm full from that big lunch, Mom. You eat." Elena smiled weakly and stroked his hair, unaware that her son had spent his day eating air and shadows. Sarah realized then that this wasn't just about poverty. It was about a profound, heartbreaking dignity. They would rather starve than ask for a handout that might make them feel like charity cases. The next day, Sarah invited Elena Miller to the school for a progress meeting. When Elena walked into the classroom, she looked older than her 34 years. She wore a neat but frayed coat, clutching her purse tightly. "Is Leo in trouble, Mrs. Jenkins? Is it his grades?" she asked, her voice trembling with the fear that her carefully constructed world was crumbling. Sarah closed the door and sat across from her. "Leo is a brilliant, kind, and incredibly brave boy." "Elena, but I know about the blue lunchbox." "I know it's empty." The room went silent. Elena's face went through a kaleidoscope of emotions: shame, anger, and finally a devastating grief. She broke down, her head in her hands. She explained that after the funeral costs and the loss of her husband's health insurance, they were left with nothing. "He refuses to eat breakfast, so there's enough for my dinner," Elena sobbed. "And he told me the school provides a free snack, so I shouldn't worry about his lunch. I believed him because I needed to believe him. If I can't feed my son, what kind of mother am I?" Sarah reached out and took Elena's hand. "You are a mother who has raised a son who would rather go hungry than see you sad. That is a success, not a failure." But Sarah knew that words wouldn't fill their pantry. She told Elena that the school had a discreet assistance program, which was a white lie. Sarah was planning to create it herself. Elena was hesitant. "We don't want charity, Sarah. We've always paid our way." Sarah smiled, an idea beginning to take shape. "Who said anything about charity? Our school cafeteria is short-staffed, and our farm-to-school initiative needs a coordinator, someone who understands the value of a real meal." Sarah didn't just want to give the Millers a fish. She wanted to give them the whole pond. She went to the school board with a proposal that was impossible to refuse. She argued that the school's nutrition program was too mechanical and lacked a human touch. She proposed a community kitchen pilot where local parents could be hired to prepare fresh, home-style meals using ingredients from local farmers. She had already secured a small grant from a local nonprofit by pitching it as a community resilience project. She offered Elena the position of lead coordinator. It wasn't a handout. It was a demanding, full-time job with benefits. Elena accepted with tears in her eyes. Within 2 weeks, the smell of real baking bread and simmering stews began to waft through the halls of Lincoln Elementary. Elena was a natural. She managed the kitchen with the precision of someone who knew exactly how precious every calorie was. The most important part of Sarah's plan was the universal lunch policy. She convinced the board to make lunch free for every student, funded by the grant and community donations. This meant that no child had to hold a free meal card or feel the sting of being different. On the first day of the new program, Leo walked into the cafeteria. He saw his mother behind the counter, wearing a clean white apron and a smile that reached her eyes for the first time in years. Sarah watched from a distance as Elena served Leo a bowl of steaming turkey chili. There was no blue lunchbox today. Leo took a bite, looked up at his mom, and gave her a thumbs up. The act was over. The reality was finally warm. A year passed, and the Lincoln kitchen model became a sensation across the state. But for Sarah Jenkins, the true reward was seeing the change in Leo. He had grown 3 inches. His skin had lost its sallow tint and his grades had soared. He was no longer the boy in the corner with the comic book. He was the captain of the debate team and a friend to everyone. The blue metal lunchbox sat on a shelf in Sarah's classroom, a reminder of the silence they had broken together. At the end of the year ceremony, Leo was asked to give a speech about community. He stood at the podium, looking out at his mother, who was now managing 3 school kitchens in the district. "A year ago, I thought being strong meant keeping secrets," Leo said into the microphone. "I thought a lunchbox was just a place to hide what you didn't have. But Mrs. Jenkins taught me that a community is a place where no one has to eat an empty lunch. She didn't just give us food. She gave us our lives back." After the ceremony, Sarah found Leo and Elena in the hallway. Elena hugged her tightly. "I don't know where we would be if you hadn't looked inside that box," she whispered. Sarah smiled, looking at Leo, who was busy laughing with his friends. "I didn't do much, Elena. I just couldn't stand the sound of a silent lunchroom anymore." As they walked out toward the parking lot, the sun setting over the Ohio fields, Sarah realized that the big step she had taken hadn't just changed the Millers. It had changed the entire school. It had turned a place of cold education into a home of warm hearts. The blue lunchbox was empty no more. It was filled with the only thing that truly sustains a human being: the knowledge that they are seen, they are valued, and they are never ever alone.